So one of the best things about having a garden is all of the wonderful harvest and produce. But we all know when everything's coming on at once, sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming with knowing what to do so that nothing goes to waste and we actually get our pantry shelves filled up with food that is preserved. So today we've got quite a bit of our cabbage is coming on. So we're gonna harvest that first. And it's really interesting. This cabbage was actually my second spring planting, and it has come on only 1 week difference as far as being ready to harvest as the cabbage that I planted 4 weeks prior. So it's just kind of one of those things that when growing conditions are right, even if you put crops in early, a lot of times you don't gain a whole lot, because they won't really flourish and grow until the weather conditions and temperature are just right. So I've got this big head here. I've pretty much been harvesting a head about every 2 to 3 days. And then of course, we've got zucchini. And if you've ever grown zucchini, you know, you can look at it and you're like, oh, that one's gonna be just the right size tomorrow. And then tomorrow happens and you come out and it's like the size of a baseball bat overnight. So I have learned that I simply pick it as soon as it looks ready and I don't wait. Well, I don't mind a few of the baseball bat sizes because those do grate up and make nice bread. Much prefer these for grilling, cooking, and just general eating. When they get to be those really big ones, I don't actually find them as versatile. These are also a zucchini. In fact, I have to look up though. I can't remember which variety these are. And we've decided that as far as just grilling flavor, these ones are a little bit more denser, where these ones are kind of your typical really soft. So as far as just like eating fresh, I'm actually really loving this variety, but I have to go back and look at my seed packets and see what variety it is. Got a little bit of rot there from the blossom that didn't fall off, but it's solid. Okay, and now I have got the first big harvest coming on. I'm actually gonna go ahead and just snag some of these calendula. So I do have a video walking you through how to do an herbal calendula oil. So I'll make sure and link to that, which is one of my must-haves in the natural medicine cabinet. But I want to get in here and get some of the basil here. So this is just regular basil next to the pepper plant. So I'm just going to go ahead, take this down to about halfway. Whenever you're harvesting your basil, you always want to cut it right where you've got 2 leaves right above that, because then it will branch out and create a lot more basil leaves for you. So I'm just going to go down about halfway on these guys. And right now we are right at the 1st of August. And so by doing a harvest like this, I should get a second really good big cutting again, right the first part of September. And you want to do it before they go to flower. These ones are just trying to set some blossoms, and so this will encourage it to produce a lot more leaves. Once they go to flower, they don't tend to produce as much leaves. These are really pretty, and they are also going to flower, and that is a Thai basil. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this back. This is definitely the Thai basil. I think it's spicier. Oh man, it smells so good though. This one is like, the Thai basil to me almost has a little bit of like an anise or a black licorice scent to it. Now today it's supposed to be about the low to mid 90s here. So I always like to just come out and do the harvest fairly early in the morning. 1, because it's not so hot out, but 2, especially when you're harvesting herbs, really any of the produce though, the zucchini, especially if I don't have any cucumbers on quite yet for pickling, you want to harvest them while they're still cool and it's early in the morning because that is when, for the herbs especially, they have a higher concentration of the oils in the leaves, which is ideal for flavor. But if you were harvesting them for medicinal properties, would also be an important note. So I just usually come out and do a large harvest of everything that I want to harvest for the day and preserve sometimes that day, but oftentimes if I'm pressed for time, I'll go ahead and do a big harvest morning, and then I'll just take the next few days prepping it all and preserving it. But that way, if the heat is going to cause anything to bolt, or really just time-wise, then the next morning, like tomorrow morning, I'll break it up, and I'll probably do the sauerkraut. If I don't get to it today, then I'll just do that tomorrow morning instead. I don't know, I find it easier to kind of batch like this, where I just do a big batch harvest, and then the next 2 days will be focused on getting all of this preserved, and then kind of rinse and repeating again. So I have multiple colors of calendula planted. However, in this section of the garden, the only one that I planted was this really the bright orange, which is kind of the traditional calendula, especially for medicinal purposes, but there are other colors. So over in the herb garden, I had planted some strawberry, which is a pink calendula, and then a lemon drop, which is really a pale yellow, almost white. But here's the exciting thing. They have started to just naturally breed. So look at this. This one is a cross between the yellow and the orange. So it's that pale yellowish on this part, and then as it blooms and matures, it gets those orange fiery tips. And then the same thing. It was a pale pink, but it's kind of crossed with the orange. Like here you can see it better. Like this one's really mature. It's getting ready to go to seed. But so you can see where they're like dual petal colors. That's the lemon drop with the regular orange. But then the pink has done the same thing. It has crossed as well. And so I'm getting like all of these, it's like a rainbow of calendula colors. And I'm super excited if you can't tell. So I just had to share. And the good news is they still have the medicinal properties, even if they're different colors. But they're just so gorgeous. And I didn't have to plant any of them. They have just replanted themselves into this lovely like carpet of different colored calendulas. So Sunday, I harvested the majority of our blueberry harvest, and I made one batch of jam, but I'm going to do another batch today. And that's where I said kind of staggering the harvest and then the preserving. So to make jam, you do not have to buy pectin. There's a couple of different options for natural pectin. One of those is green apples. So these are not ripe yet. They've got definitely a few more weeks, but green apples, any fruit that's underripe has a higher pectin level. Even if you're picking your berries and you get a few that are not quite all the way ripe, throw them in your jam because they have higher pectin levels. So I'm going to pick a green apple. I'm just doing a small batch of jam today because I've already done 2 batches, and I think I'm going to dehydrate or maybe freeze the rest of the blueberries. So I'm just going to get a small green apple, and this will be enough for making that batch of jam. But I'll also share as we're going through it, there's other pectin sources, and it's great to know what all of the natural pectin sources are. So depending on what you have on hand or what area of the country you live in and what grows naturally, you will be prepared. So first thing I do when I get in the house is determine what exactly I'm going to be preserving first for the day. So this is what I have left from the majority of our blueberry harvest. I've already frozen 2 gallons of blueberries, and then I did a batch of jam with the blueberries yesterday, and then last night we did hamburgers, and we used the blueberry jam in place of like ketchup with the burgers. One of the best burgers I've ever had in my life. We have a little local restaurant that does blackberries. My blackberries aren't quite on yet, and it is phenomenal. You use like white cheese, so I did a raw white cheddar, and you melt that, and then you put the jam on it. I would have never thought of I don't know why. I use jam when I do like glazes on meatballs. Never occurred to me to put it on a hamburger. But we made hamburgers last night. I'm like, let's try the blueberry jam and see what we think about that, because the blackberries aren't on yet and I'm out of blackberry jam, and was a hit. So now I'm like, okay, I need to make one more batch of blueberry jam, and then I'll do blackberries because I know I'm gonna want it on hamburgers all winter long. So I'm gonna do one more batch of blueberry jam today, but then these, you can tell some of them are kind of getting a little bit past their prime because I picked them a couple days ago. So what I don't make into jam today with the blueberries, I'm going to freeze, but then I'm going to dehydrate it. However, whenever you're dehydrating berries, especially a blueberry, it's called checking, but you need to pierce the skin or it takes forever for them to dehydrate. I found the easiest way to do that in bulk. I am not sitting and poking, which you can do, every single berry to check it. That would take forever. So I just dump these all into gallon bags, throw them in the freezer until they froze, which usually I just leave them in there for like 24 hours. And then you just put them on your dehydrator trays, the ones you want to dehydrate, let them thaw and right there on the trays, and then plug in your dehydrator and dehydrate them. They dehydrate a lot faster. And I do like dehydrated blueberries. I also like to have frozen blueberries, but I don't need a ton of frozen blueberries. So that's my plan with these because I need to finish these off today after I make the jam. And then my next is looking at, I don't know that I will actually get to, I want to freeze dry some of this basil. I find that just regular dehydrated basil, after a month or two, I don't think it hardly has any flavor. Freeze dried, however, retains its flavor all year long. And then I also do salted basil, and we will link to that tutorial. I have a video and a blog post on how to do salted basil, which is really good, but I've got more basil here than I need for even the salted basil. So simply by just putting it in a vase with water like this, or a mason jar, that will help hold these until I get to dealing with them, which may be today or it might actually be tomorrow, but this just kind of keeps them in their prime. I am going to do pesto with some of these. And then I usually just freeze the pesto, the part that we're not using fresh. So basically the goal is to just get the stems down in the water. So I'll get all these in here, and then I may need to top that off a little bit with water. So here are all my bouquets of our basil. And I tell you what, isn't the Thai basil so pretty? I love the purple flowers. This actually would look beautiful in a floral arrangement, but we're using it for culinary purposes. So I'm just gonna let those set there. If I get through the rest of today and decide that I'm not gonna actually have time to make the pesto tonight or freeze them, then I'll just pop them in the fridge so that they stay nice and fresh and vital, but they'll be fine on the countertop for today in their water. So next we're gonna prep our stuff for blueberry jam. We don't have air conditioning in our house, and it's supposed to be mid-90s today as well as tomorrow, and kind of right around 90 for the rest of this week. So in order to help keep the house cool, I'm gonna be doing all of my canning outside, but I find it easier to prep in the kitchen. So we are going to grate this apple, and I'm gonna grate it on the fine setting just because I don't want the texture of large pieces of apple in the blueberry jam. But what we're really after is the peel. The peel is where you've got the majority of your pectin source. So this we are just doing a small batch of, so just having this one smaller green apple will be just fine for our pectin source. If you were doing a larger batch, then obviously you would just want to increase the apple to match the ratio. So we are going to be doing for this, which if you have my book, Everything Worth Preserving, then you've got this recipe. I do have it on the website as well. But what's great about this is we're just gonna flip to the back section, which is all in alphabetical order. And we are going to go straight to blueberries. I don't want cherries, I want blueberries, which is on page 301. And it shows you all of the different ways that you can safely preserve blueberries. It has all types of produce as well as protein. So for this one, we are going to be doing the low sugar blueberry jam without pectin. So it's 4 cups pureed blueberries, 1 1/4 cups sugar, and you can adjust the sugar to your preference. If you like it sweeter, you can increase the sugar. And then the additional pectin sources, we're using the green apple today, but you can also use the zest of limes or lemons. And so that gives it a whole different flavor profile and is really fun to have all of those different varieties and slight flavor differences. And we are also adding, because this is a low sugar recipe, you do need acidity when it comes to canning, is for safety with pH levels, but also is what helps you to get your set or to get your jam to gel. So it's not super runny, and we're not trying to make syrup today, though there is the recipe for blueberry syrup, which is also delicious. So we are going to be adding a 1/4 cup of concentrated lemon juice to all of this in the big pot, and then we'll take it outside and get that to simmering. So we've got our 4 cups of blueberry puree in the pot. And then you just add everything in together. So I've got my sugar here already measured out. We'll dump that in. So now we're gonna add our lemon juice. And then lastly, we're gonna put in our grated green apple. And today's video is sponsored by Azure Standard. Azure is where I get all of my dry goods, including my canning supplies. So they have canning jars and lids. But you can also get produce from them. So we're just gonna go ahead and just stir this until all the sugar and the ingredients are fully dissolved. And I've got this burner set on medium. This burner is amazing. It's a cast iron burner, and this thing heats up so well. I'm so impressed with this. We'll have a link in the blog post beneath this video so you can go and check it out. But I use this for all of my outdoor canning. It works really, really well. But Azure Standard, you can get fresh produce from them. You can get your berries. Of course, I get my sugars. You can get them in bulk. You can try things out small, but when you buy it in bulk, you're definitely going to save money. And I've been using them for, oh gosh, probably about 8 years. They are a phenomenal company. They are very ethical, and I know that I can trust the sourcing of all of their products. And if you're a first-time customer, use coupon code Melissa15. We'll have it beneath this video with a link, and you'll get 15% off your first-time order of $100 or more. And I was gonna show you guys, I love their canning jars. So they have canning jars, and they are like the old-time thick glass of the older jars. So those of you who've been canning for a while, you know what I mean. I feel like the newer canning jars are made of a thinner glass. It feels like the bottoms shear off or they crack easier. I don't know, maybe it's just my imagination, but my older jars feel like thicker glass, and they just feel like they hold up much better. And that's what the Azure canning jars are like to me. They have that really nice, it's just a thicker, like you can feel it. And so they've been producing jars for, I think, about 3 years now. And I really do like their jars. And they come in all different sizes. I've got a pint size here. So definitely check them out for your canning supplies as well as ingredients. So we are just gonna bring this up to a simmer. Now that I've got all my ingredients stirred in here, I'm gonna turn this up just a smidge. We're gonna bring this to a simmer, and then we're gonna let it go for about 20 minutes, stirring it fairly frequently. We do have sugar in here. Obviously, we don't want it to scorch until we'll check for the set, which I'll show you. But usually it takes anywhere from 20 to about 25 minutes on a smaller batch like this. Oh, one quick tip. Whenever you're trying to make jam, always go for the larger pot, as in a wider pot, not necessarily deep, because the larger surface area you have, the faster some of that liquid will start to evaporate, and it will help it hit that gelling point faster. So if you have a thermometer, the gelling point is 220 degrees Fahrenheit, but you can definitely get visual cues. So one, it will turn darker as it cooks, and you'll kind of feel, I notice it a lot in the corners of the pot, you'll feel that it's a thicker texture. It's not really lumpy, it's not gelled yet until it cools, but you can feel that textural change. And sometimes it'll even look kind of, instead of foamy like it did when we first were doing it, it'll almost get like a wrinkly on the very top if you haven't stirred it. I just stirred it so you can't see that, it'll get wrinkly. But the real way to test it is, one, you can put a spoon in the fridge or freezer so it's cold and it'll show it a lot faster. But the sheet test for me is the absolute like holy grail of telling. So you're gonna take a metal spoon, we're gonna get a good enough amount on here, and then you're gonna watch as it drips. So you'll see it'll have a couple of drips, but then see how this is coming off in a sheet. And as the drips cut, like right here, that's just a drip that's suspended. Like it's gelling right there. The spoon is actually up here. That is a whole sheet that's coming down, and it's not dripping off like liquid. So see that? Like that's gelled. Be careful, don't burn your finger. So when that happens, we're going to turn this off. And then I've had my jars here that are already warm and ready to fill. So I'm just going to move this. But now, because we're working with only have one outside burner, we're going to put our canner on here, bring it up to medium-high heat, and get our steam canner going. And this little burner is super powerful, so it's going to heat that up really, really fast. So we are going to go ahead and start filling our jars here. And I've already washed these lids and then I just put them back. These are 4 jars lids, and these canning lids work phenomenally well. I do have a coupon code and a link that I will put in beneath this. They sell them in this size, which is pretty typical what you would see in grocery stores, but they also sell them in bulk. So you can get really big bulk things of the lids, which is what I do. And then I just fill this little box like this when I'm bringing it outside, just so I'm not trying to carry so much for outdoor canning. So we're gonna get our jars filled here. Got my funnel, and we're gonna go to a 1/4 inch headspace for our jam. And what's really nice is this funnel actually has the headspace built into the measurements into the funnel. So let me show you real quick. See these? This is your headspace. So this one here is an inch, 1/4 inch, an inch headspace, and you've got 1/2 inch and then a 1/4 inch. So when we get to this spot, we know that is our 1/4 inch. I also have this little headspace measuring tool because most funnels, unlike the 4 jars funnel, do not have that built in to the funnel itself. All right, so now I find it easiest to just transfer that right into the next jar. This is hot, so do be careful. And so I'll just show you here with this. This is a debubbler tool. I have found with jam, you don't really get air bubbles. It's kind of like pouring in liquid. So I'm just going to measure. It's right on the money at that 1/4 inch. So now we're going to take our damp towel, get any jam or debris. We're going to wipe that rim clean. You can see I had a little bit of jam on there, and that can inhibit a seal. I want to make sure there's nothing on there. We're going to check our rim, make sure there's no cracks. There's not. Go ahead and put our lid on. And then we're going to tighten our band down to fingertip tight. So just use your thumb and 2 fingers. Spin it till you meet resistance, and then a 1/4 turn. This one's ready to go. So we'll put that on our canner here. And then we'll get the rest of our jars filled up. Okay, so we're going to put our lid on our steam canner here. This does have to get up to temp with a steam canner. There's a little knob on the lid here. So once it reaches the appropriate internal temperature, then these will process for 10 minutes. So this is why it's really important to know what you can not preserve until later and have it be in stages, because things can interrupt your day that have to be dealt with immediately, such as when your baby chicks arrive. So we just got 35 meat bird baby chicks and then 4 Buff Orpington chicks for laying hens, and the post office just called us to come and get them. Hi, little buddies. Oh, look at all of you. You made it. So these, oh, you're a hungry little fart. I felt that. I will get your food in a minute. Goodness gracious, you're starving? Yeah. So the yellow ones, these are all Cornish cross. So these will be our meat birds, which we'll harvest at about 8 to 9 weeks, depending on their size. But we also got these little darlings. And, oh, I think I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, actually 5 of them. I thought I was getting 4, but I got 5. And these are the little Buff Orpington ladies, who will be some of my new egg layers, the hens, because unfortunately we have had some horrific predator pressure, and I have lost about 8 of my laying hens in the past 2 months. So these guys are coming in new flocks, and we're taking some extra measures, Yeah, to keep you safe. So when you have baby chicks, the most important thing is, first thing is they get something to drink even before they eat. They have a window of where they can be shipped, because when a mama hen is laying eggs, she obviously doesn't lay all of her eggs on the same day. So they hatch in different stages. So nature has built in that they can go for so many hours and days without having any food or water until mama hen has hatched all that she's sitting on and then takes care of her whole little brood at the same time. So what I like to do first is, they say they'll find water on their own, but I'm like, why take a chance? Let's just show them. I just like to dip their little beaks in the water so they know, oh, this is my water source. See, and this one's already drinking. It's like, oh man, that's perfect. Thank you. So I just take them out one by one and do that. Plus, who doesn't like to sit and play with baby chicks? There go, buddies. So we've tried raising meat birds all different times of the year. I've gotten them in early spring so that we're butchering them before they get big and are in the heat of summer. I've tried them midsummer, and for us, I have found it's best to get them when they're babies. We like to get them the end of July, first part of August, and then we butcher the end of September. And for us with our climate, I have really found that's worked best because when they're really little like this, they need to be hot anyways. And so by the time they get bigger, hey, don't bite your toe, that wasn't nice. By the time they get bigger, then we started to reach those cooler temperatures, and that way they're not big during the heat of summer, which it doesn't really matter so much for the little hens. What it matters is for the meat birds, because when they get really big, they can have heat stroke and they don't do as well in the heat. So I have found that I have they get the best weights. I've got all the food coming out of the garden, extra-wise that, to be able to supplement and feed them. And it's not too cold, so they're not using body heat trying to keep warm. I don't lose them if we get like weird storms that roll through like we can in the early spring. So I really like to get them, and then they're all wrapped up and done right as we're moving into the fall. And so freezers are full end of September with all of our chickens for that year. So I've just really found that the climate-wise and time of year, that tends to work the best for us. Oh, look at this. There's dinner. There's dinner. There's dinner. Yeah. Oh, some of you figuring it out, huh? This video is also sponsored in part by McMurray Hatchery. I have used a lot of hatcheries in the past and had not so good results. But I switched to using McMurray Hatchery probably about 5 or 6 years ago, well before they ever became a sponsor, and I have loved. I always get the chicks come very healthy, they grow out, and we have never had any problems. Highly recommend McMurray Hatchery, and we will put a link to them in this video below. And if you're wanting to learn how to harvest your own chickens to fill your freezer, we are doing a special in-person workshop at Norris Farmstead, September 27th. We only have, at the time of this recording, 6 spots left, but we will put the link beneath here in case we have any spots left, and I hope to see you there. The chicken tractors work phenomenally well, but when they're this tiny, you definitely have to make sure, if they're not on level ground, that every little nook and cranny is blocked, because they will find their way out. And the cats are like, ooh, chicken dinner. Huh, till you're bigger. So now that we have officially got all of our holes blocked off, they've got their water, they know where the food is, and right now the daytime temp is super warm, which they're moving to the sunlight. It's definitely warm enough for them, so I'm not too worried about them. They will find the heat, so I'll check on them once evening comes to make sure they know where their heat plate is, but it's already warmed up and ready to go. So I'm going to go back and finishing up our jam. So our timer just went off for 10 minutes. So with the steam canner, this is different than when you're using a regular water bath canner. This is with steam canners. You need to turn off your heat and then you leave the lid on for 5 minutes. This is considered part of the processing time. And inside our water bath canning course, we have a full canning course. We go into full depth information on all the different types of cannings and the safety aspects. But just important to note with the steam canner, turn off your burner, leave the lid on for 5 minutes. Don't take it off. So it has been 5 minutes. We're gonna go ahead and take our lid off. This is still warm. So when I'm canning outside, because you don't want, it's pretty hot today, so I'm not super worried about it, and the wind isn't very high right now, but I do like to put the jars straight into a tub like this that's lined with a towel. And then I put a towel over top, because if it were to get really breezy, you can have thermal shock with the glass, and it could break, like if you have too much of extreme temperature differences. So this helps protect as a wind block, and then putting the towel on top as well. So we'll do that. These will sit for 12 to 24 hours undisturbed. And then after that, as long as we have got all of our jars sealed, then we'll just take them into the house and put them on the shelf. We got everything harvested. Basil is prepped for tomorrow. Jam is made, and we got all of the baby chicks in. They are in their little brooder and their chicken tractor looking well. However, the day is getting away from me, so the cabbage I'm gonna leave until tomorrow. I probably will throw it in the fridge just so it stays nice and crisp, and then I will make curtido and sauerkraut from these 2 heads tomorrow morning. And the zucchini I'll probably cook up for dinner tonight, but if you have a ton of zucchini coming on, we do have all the ways to preserve zucchini video, so you can go and check that out as well.